The Galactic Council chamber had never been this silent. From the floating spires of the core world Vashri, representatives of 1,000 civilizations gathered, their bioluminescent skins and crystal eyes reflecting the cold glow of the Council's lights. The subject of the meeting was Earth, the young species that had risen from a blue world at the edge of the Orion Arm. For decades, the Council had viewed humanity with both fascination and caution. They were unpredictable, emotional, and driven by ambition that seemed endless. Some species admired their innovation and courage. Others feared their growing influence, their stubborn refusal to bow to the old order of the galaxy. Humanity had entered the galactic stage late, but they moved as if they had always belonged there. The tragedy began with a single misunderstanding, or perhaps a deliberate act of arrogance. The human diplomat, Ambassador Nathan Hale, had been invited to present Earth's proposal for greater autonomy within the Council. His words were calm, measured, and filled with a rare conviction that stirred even the coldest minds. "We only seek equality," he said, standing before the vast assembly. "Not dominance, not submission, equality." But the Council's leadership saw humanity's growing strength as a threat. Reports had already spread of Terran fleets expanding, of colonies thriving on worlds others had failed to tame. And behind every human smile, the old races saw something they had not felt in millennia: defiance. What happened next would be remembered across galaxies. Without warning, during the closing session, an explosion tore through the chamber. Security drones swarmed, alarms blared, and when the smoke cleared, Ambassador Hale lay motionless. The Council blamed a malfunction, but too many eyes had seen the deliberate aim of the plasma discharge. The truth spread faster than they could suppress it. The human diplomat had been killed by the Council's own guards. The news reached Earth within hours. Across continents, every screen flickered with the same image: the Terran flag lowered to half-mast and the words beneath it: "They murdered one of ours." The world united in a way it never had before. Old nations cast aside their disputes. Militaries once divided now stood under one command. The Terran High Command declared what history would later call the never-ending battle. Humanity was done with politics. They would no longer debate their worth with those who saw them as lesser. The first retaliation came swift and precise. A single Terran fleet, the Vanguard Armada, appeared at the edges of Council space. The fleet's ships were angular and dark, their hulls layered with adaptive armor that shimmered like storm clouds. They did not demand surrender. They broadcast only a single message translated into every galactic tongue: "You took one of ours. Now we take everything." The Council underestimated humanity's capabilities. They believed Earth's fleets were small, their reach limited. They had never seen what humans could accomplish when united by rage and grief. The first strikes shattered orbital stations around Vashri's outer colonies. Terran missiles, guided by AI minds the Council could barely comprehend, sliced through defenses like paper. Whole fleets vanished before they could fire a shot. For the first time in 1,000 years, the Council felt fear. Their fleets, built for show and diplomacy, crumbled before the relentless precision of human warfare. They tried to negotiate, sending envoys and pleas for peace, but the messages went unanswered. Earth had gone silent. Humanity had become a storm that spoke only through action. Yet this was not a war of extermination. Terrans did not slaughter civilians nor destroy worlds without reason. They targeted military structures, command centers, and weapons depots. Their strikes were surgical, almost merciful. But to the Council, that mercy felt more terrifying than annihilation. It showed control. It showed that humanity was not raging blindly. They were delivering judgment. Months turned into years, and the Council began to fracture. Old alliances broke apart as species accused each other of betrayal. Some, fearing humanity's wrath, defected and offered information to the Terrans in exchange for protection. Others tried to fight back with weapons of forbidden power, only to find human countermeasures already waiting. It was as though Earth had prepared for every scenario. Rumors spread of hidden human research stations, deep in uncharted systems where their scientists had studied every species' strengths and weaknesses. The Council realized too late that the humans had learned from them all and surpassed them. The leader of the Council at the time, High Chancellor Varel, stood before the hollowed remains of the chamber where Ambassador Hale had died. "We thought them fragile," Viral said in a trembling voice to the few remaining delegates. We thought they sought our approval, but they were learning, watching, and now they have become the lesson. On Earth, humanity transformed. The cities gleamed with energy from Dyson arrays orbiting their sun. Every industry now served the war effort. Children studied strategy and diplomacy side by side, learning from the mistakes that had led to Hale's death. For them, the battle was not just for vengeance, it was for respect. They would never again be dismissed as a primitive world among stars. When the Terran Armada finally reached the core of Council space, resistance had all but collapsed. The once mighty fleets of the galaxy were reduced to scattered remnants. The Council itself no longer governed anything beyond a few isolated systems. Yet when the Terran commander entered the chamber where the betrayal began, he did not order destruction. He simply stood before the ancient emblem of the Council and said, "This is where you killed peace." Earth declared a new order, not an empire, but a charter of equality that no species could ignore. Each world would have sovereignty, but those who broke the laws of honor and diplomacy would answer to Earth's fleets. The Terran Enclave became both guardian and judge of the stars. Many hated them for it, yet none could challenge their strength. Centuries passed, and humanity's influence spread to every corner of known space. Their ships patrolled ancient trade routes once ruled by alien powers. Their engineers rebuilt shattered worlds, and their ambassadors walked into halls that once barred them entry. But even as they ruled, they never forgot the diplomat who died seeking peace. Every year on the day of Hale's death, Earth fell silent. The stars were dimmed by global networks. Children gathered in the halls of remembrance, hearing the story of the man who believed in equality, and how his death united an entire species. Yet the battle never truly ended. Not in the way wars usually do, because wherever humanity went, resistance followed. Some species refused to submit to Terran law, seeing it as conquest under another name. Skirmishes erupted across distant systems, small but endless. Each time the Terrans answered with the same cold precision. Their fleets would appear, crush the rebellion, then vanish into the dark. The never-ending battle had become less of a war and more of a cycle, a shadow cast over the stars. There were whispers of fleets that never returned, of alien coalitions forming in the void, plotting to strike Earth from the depths of uncharted space. And every time such a threat rose, the Terrans would respond before it reached maturity. It was as though they could see the future. Some said they had built sentient machines that watched over every transmission in the galaxy, learning, predicting, waiting. Others believed that humanity had merged with those machines, becoming something far greater than flesh and bone. But to most, humanity remained a paradox, a civilization capable of compassion and fury in equal measure. They rebuilt the worlds they conquered, healed the wounded enemies they once fought, and yet they never forgot the insult that began it all. The galaxy learned to live with the quiet dread that at any moment, Earth's shadow might fall again. And deep in the archives of the Terran Enclave, locked behind layers of security, was the final message ever recorded by Ambassador Hale before his death. In it, he spoke not of vengeance but of warning. "We will earn our place," he said. "If they deny us peace, then peace will come through strength. But when that day comes, may we never forget why we fought." Generations later, the Council was gone. The old races had faded into memory, and new ones rose under humanity's guidance. Yet the never-ending battle continued, not as open warfare, but as vigilance. The Terrans watched the stars, their fleets ever ready, their leaders bound by the promise of a man who had once stood alone before a galaxy and asked for equality. The galaxy would never again forget the cost of betraying Earth, and so the legend endured, of the diplomat's death, of the wrath that followed, and of a species that had turned grief into power. Across countless worlds, when new civilizations looked up and saw Terran ships gliding through the void, they would whisper the words that had echoed since that first act of treachery: "Do not anger Earth." And among the stars, those words were not a warning, they were law.